Hello, everyone. Welcome to Audubon Society of Central Arkansas's monthly meeting. I'm the Vice President, Dan Scheinman. Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce our speaker, Joe Tucker, who has been retired for 10 years, lucky guy, from the legal side of the commercial casualty side of the insurance industry. Basically, he's in business insurance. His career has spanned many of the sciences: chemistry, medicine, psychology, engineering, law, risk management, and education. His love of nature and photography dates back 68 years now. He's also a master naturalist. And so far, he and his wife of 53 years have traveled to 70 of the world's nations, and we'll be adding 9 more in 2023, some of which I think they've already added this year, right? 2 more already this year. Woof. And tonight he'll be sharing his experiences from Southern Africa. Take it away, Joe.
Okay, well, let me hit this share screen button. The first thing I'm going to talk about and show you is to give you an idea of the habitat that we're going to be talking about tonight. Most of us are over 60 and some of us are over 70. Poor Dan, I guess he's the baby of the group. But when you have watched movies about Africa for the most part, and if you're really old, you only saw movies of Africa showing steaming green, thick, mine swinging jungles. Well, some of Africa is like that. Africa is a continent. Africa is not a country. There are 57 countries in Africa. We have been to, I believe, 8 of them now. In August, we went to South Africa. Takes you quite a way time to get to there. You fly from here to New York or here to Atlanta, and New York or Atlanta, you fly to Frankfurt, Germany, or the Amsterdam or London, and then, which is about a 7-hour flight, and then it's about an 11-hour flight from Amsterdam or London to Cape Town. And that's how we went over from Little Rock to New York, New York to Amsterdam, Amsterdam to Cape Town. Most of Africa looks exactly like what you're seeing on the screen. This is a picture in Zimbabwe, and I don't know if you can see my cursor, but you can see the mist rising from the river below Victoria Falls. This is a typical African scene. The predators have plenty of bush. Actually, most of South Africa reminded us of the scrublands of Texas, where all the mesquite grow. Anything about 60 miles south of Dallas to the east or to the west or to the south, when you get out in the rangeland that hasn't been cleared, this looks a lot like Texas. You do have clearings. You do have some large trees, but mostly the trees are small because most of Africa is arid. Their rainy season comes in buckets. Over 1 month to 6 weeks out of the year, with a little taper before, a little taper after, and then the rest of the time it's dry. Most of Africa is not hot. We were there in August, which, by the way, is their winter below the equator. We have spent time in Kenya, which we absolutely love. Kenya is on the equator, but it's also mostly at 7,000 foot elevation. So it's a very wonderful climate. And of course, in Africa, you get to see lions. And again, this is behind this lion is a typical backdrop of trees, small trees and scrub brush from which they come. You don't sleep outside alone at night. and this is why. Okay, any questions about the habitat? Okay, if there's no questions, we will move on to the birds. If I can make this happen. Where's my, there we go. Okay. Dan, can everybody see this screen here?
No, it's still a black square. I think you've got a
Okay.
outside of Zoom, you need to start up your photo slide viewing and then share the screen. So stop sharing.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me see.
Remember, you're sharing only one application at a time here. So right now you were sharing your file explorer, but you've got to actually get the photo started up and then share.
To that. Well, that screen is up. Well, now I've lost. Oops. All right. I can see you on the right, but I don't see anything else. Ah, here we go. Now I got it back. Okay, let me go to share screen. Share.
There you go.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Now, I had to slip this one in. We got back 2 weeks ago from South America, and I was just so doggone proud of myself that after 4 trips to South America to the Andes, I finally got a picture of an Andean condor. This is an Andean condor. It has nothing to do with Africa. Zero, zilch. But I'm just so doggone proud of it. I had to share it with you because most people never get to see in real time an Andean condor. Okay. I'm used to doing presentations in person. This is my very first one to do on Zoom. I'm used to handing out handouts and things. I have a website if anybody's interested. There it is on your screen. There's a QR code below it. So if you want to take your cell phone and shoot that QR code, that will take you to my website. I also have a Facebook page with a similar name that is strictly photographs. No, nothing else but photographs. So if anybody is interested, you have that. Oops. Well, okay. Birds of Africa. I showed you what the habitat looks like anywhere else when we go birding. If you get up before dawn and you get out in the field just at first light when it's really too dark to take a photograph, and the next 2 hours is the very best time to see birds. And the wonderful thing about Africa, anywhere you find water, and you find trees, or you find meadows, you will find birds. This is a lilac-breasted roller. It's the national bird of Kenya. They are throughout Africa and the arid regions from the equator south. So if you're lucky and you get up early, or again in the evening, the last 2 hours before dark, you will see this bird. They're very easy to spot. Here's another view of a lilac-breasted roller. They're about the size of a robin, and you can see that it's going to be around trees. You will not see this as a meadow bird, but you will see them in scrub brush areas. This is a buzzard. If you are like me, you grew up calling those black vultures and those turkey vultures buzzards. They are not buzzards, they are vultures. This is a real honest to goodness buzzard. It's an augur, A-U-G-U-R, buzzard. This is a batleur, B-A-T-L-E-U-R. It's also a raptor. It was in the middle of the road. My wife and I and 4 other people are riding in a Jeep that has a elevated church bench of 3 tiers, one higher than the other, and they cram 6 to 8 people in the back of it, and it's all open. So the lions and leopards and cheetahs and anything else, if they want to eat you, all they got to do is jump in the vehicle with you. But they do not, because they're used to vehicles and they don't see them as a threat. This is a tawny eagle. We took this picture in Zimbabwe the day that the charging lion that you saw on my virtual background. This is a brown snake eagle. They have a lot more different eagles than we have. The tawny eagle on the other screen, we saw it out in the bush area. The tawny, the brown snake eagle, you will usually find around water. This is a fish eagle. You will always find this eagle around water. They are as prolific as our bald eagles are. If you go to Alaska, that is, we certainly have bald eagles here in Arkansas, and we have a number of people that post them on Facebook quite frequently. But this is a fish eagle. It's about the size of our bald eagle, and it reminds you somewhat of our bald eagle. We see them in pairs. I've got several pictures of pairs of fish eagles. This one's calling for his mate. They sound just like our eagles do. I'm sure that a fish eagle sounds different to a bald eagle than a bald eagle would to a fish eagle. And there's a pair of fish eagles, of course. The female is on the left, the male is on the right. As most of you know, many animals in the animal kingdom, the bird kingdom, the female is larger than the male. It's certainly true with most eagle species. Now, this is an interesting bird. It's also the raptor family. You can tell by the beak and the claws. It has 2 names. Its official name is a gray lory, L-O-R-I. Locally, it's known, and it's in the books there, as the gray go-away bird. And they're quite common. This is a martial eagle, quite a magnificent, stately looking eagle. Again, we find it generally around water. This is another gray lory, and you will see that I should have had these 2 together. That one certainly looks gray. This one does not. I could not get anyone to explain to me why, other than this one was taken in very, very early morning light, very warm light. Notice the thorns on the bush in front of it. Now, Africa does have vultures. They have like 7 different types of vultures. Some of their vultures are endangered. This again was at the Victoria Falls compound in Zimbabwe. This is a hooded vulture. We saw dozens of these They come in to feed just below where our lodge was. And so it was quite easy to photograph them and see them. This is a marabou stork. The marabou stork, we saw a lot of these in Kenya also. We almost always find them around water. They are listed in the African birds as a vulture. They are a carrion eater. They're scavenger. So they have a habit and habitat pretty much like any other vulture, but it's actually a stork. This is a marabou stork, and you'll notice that this is an older bird. It has a very long gorter. The males puff that up and trying to impress the females. This picture was taken. I was up high. It's in the top of a tree. This is an open bill stork. I guess it's called an open bill because it cannot completely close its bill, as you can see here. It too is around water. And there he is with a different profile. But if you look closely, you can see that this section, forward section of his bill does not close completely. This is a white-backed vulture, and you'll see the white on its back. And this is a white-backed vulture and a hooded vulture fighting over a scrap piece of meat. At the lodge we were staying at, they have an area that they go and feed. The area is a protected area. All of these vultures are protected vultures. And every day at 1 p.m., they go out and throw out 50 pounds of chopped up scrap, and the vultures come in by the dozens. And here's a marabou, white-hooded, hooded vultures, all in a tree waiting for mealtime. Now, this is a lappet-faced vulture. Excuse me, I've got to take this call. I'll take a quick break for me.
To add to one thing that Joe said, the go-away birds or lories, they are in the Turako family, Musophagiformes, Musophagidae. And if you, to reiterate, if you have any questions, you can put those in the chat and I will relay them to Joe, or you can wait till he's done and unmute yourself and ask a question.
And the reason they're called go-away birds is they're loud and they call incessantly from the trees. So the locals go away, because they're really annoying.
Anyone else have any African anecdotes to add? All right, Joe's dealing with some family medical emergencies, so we gotta bear with him for a moment there. The open-billed stork it's a stork, the open-billed stork, not a heron, although it kind of looks like a limpkin just from the body and the coloration and the pattern a little bit.
I can't get over how beautiful the lilac-breasted rollers are.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. That issue is put off until the morning now, so I'm free. I do apologize.
No problem. Carry on, Joe.
Okay, this is the lappet-faced vulture. This is the only one I've seen. So if they're common, I've only seen one. One of my favorite birds, this is a yellow-billed stork. They are one of the prettiest birds to see. They're fun to watch. They're friendly. You can get reasonably close to them. Of course, you always want to be ethical and follow your Audubon bird ethics. I'm not saying you can walk right up to one, but I probably took this picture no more than 20 feet from it. They're pretty adapted to the so-called safari vehicles that you ride around in. You do not want to just go out walking on your own in Africa anywhere. You might get eaten, and it does happen. And here's another yellow-billed stork that's caught a fish, and I love the reflection. And you see them around water mostly. And this is a woolly neck stork. Look at its white neck. It does look like a woolly wrap around its neck. They're also a very pretty bird. Of course, this picture was taken in August. It looks like it might have been molting a little bit there, but I don't know. We have good guides, and most of them are very knowledgeable. And usually in the evening, we'll sit down with one and go through my birds that I've taken and get the right names and everything. They're very friendly and very helpful people. And this is another woolly-necked stork. And here's a pair of woolly-necked storks. Notice the red eye. Now these weren't quite as friendly as the yellow-bill. I'm about probably 30 yards away. They're on the other side of the river from me. Now here we call this an ahinga of one type or another. They're called darters there, and they're listed in eBird as a separate species than the ahinga. And again, you find them around water. And here's another darter, very, very similar to our ahingas. And of course, they dive in, catch fish, and then you'll find them with their wings out, to dry their wings out so they can fly better and faster. And another one. Now you look at this and you say, Joe, that's a great blue heron. Well, no, it's not. It's a gray heron. It's a different species. It looks very similar to our great blue herons, but it's a different species. They do have great blues over there. Didn't see any. I thought I did. This one looks an awful lot like it, but it's a different species called the gray heron. And this is a long-tailed cormorant. We do have these here. Same red eye, same bird. And the lights, this is a white bearded cormorant. Notice this one has a greenish blue eye, and the long tail has a red eye. Different species, different markings, same family. A great egret, yes, they have great egrets. And one of my new favorite birds is the sacred ibis. We did not see these until we got up in Botswana. Had looked all over South Africa, the country South Africa, because they were talking about them. Might have seen some at a distance, but couldn't confirm it. We saw bunches in Botswana, and they're just absolutely gorgeous. Yes, I know some people think that's a face only the mother would love, but they are beautiful birds. They really are. The back of the sacred ibis. That one has a real serious look on its face. They are fish eaters and they're quite adept at it. And this is a Hadara ibis. And this is a glossy ibis. We have glossy ibis here. We occasionally will see some in Arkansas. They're easy to confuse, particularly in the spring of the year with a white face ibis before the white face ibis gets their white face. This is the glossy. And there's a little bit better view of the glossy. And I love these birds. They're very similar to our black-necked stilts. These are black-winged stilts. And they're just as cute, just as pretty, very photographic. Black-winged stilts. Okay, this is a greater flamingo. Didn't see very many of these. This was the only one we saw. But they're beautiful, particularly with the grass background. This is a jacana, a very common bird around the water. We saw baby jacanas, lots of jacanas. Look at that foot. It's got nails that could hurt you if it landed on your shoulder. And this is a baby, a juvenile jacana. Skimmer. We have skimmers. And I was fortunate to get this shot. It was late in the day, low sunlight, just before sunset, and it was out on the water doing what it does, skimming, and it will catch a small fish eventually. And there you go. He was successful. He got a small fish or a sheep. I don't know how you tell the difference between the two. Ah, a spoonbill. Quite a different bird from our roseate spoonbills, but this is an African spoonbill. And this is a squatco, S-Q-U-A, squatco heron, a new bird. I got a lot of new birds on this trip. But a squatco heron is a pretty bird. It's about the size of our little blue herons are, but it's more stocky bird. It doesn't have the leg length, but it's a good fisher. He pierced that fish. You can see the beak going right through the fish. And there's another one. It's right on the edge of the water, just waiting for another little fish to come by and it will get speared. This is a 3-banded plover. I believe we have 3-banded plover. I do believe I have pictures of those from here in Arkansas. At least something is called a 3-banded plover, but for some reason the eyes and the beak to me looks a little different. And here's the 3-banded plover side view, and you can see it's got quite an orange eye. And this is a wood sandpiper. It's about the same size as our yellow-legged sandpipers. And there's another picture of the wooded sandpiper. This is a common sandpiper. A lot of their birds look very similar to ours, but have different names, and eBird are listed differently than ours, even though they look very similar. This is a crested francolin, Francolin, a crested francolin. Again, this was in Botswana, and there was a big lake that on the river that leads into Zimbabwe to Victoria Falls. And before the light was good enough, we saw dozens of these running around. I couldn't get a good picture. It was just too dark. Finally, as the sun got a little bit above the horizon, the sun hit this one, and I got its picture, and they're a beautiful little bird. They're very similar to our grouse. They may very well be a member of the grouse family. And this is a red bill francolin, same family, different bird. The crested, the red bill. And you can tell from this picture that the light, this was one that the light was still very low on. And it was the best one I could do and the best one I could process to at least get a halfway decent picture of it. Once it got really bright, we didn't see them anymore. They scurried under the bush. This is a red crested bustard. You've heard of bustards. Well, this is a bustard. I don't see much red on its crest, but it's a red crested bustard. Almost all of these pictures were taken around this lake early in the morning. This is a Swainson's francolin. Again, in the francolin line, it's a little bit bigger bird than the other ones. It's got a different head on it. It's got a different wattle on it. I suspect all of these are good to eat, but we're on national park land in Africa, so nobody's out there hunting. This one here is called a water thick knee. Now, I saw this bird down in the country of South Africa, just out of Cape Town. I was really surprised when I looked this bird up. I had downloaded all of the countries of bird apps into Merlin. And I was surprised when the name came up, and I verified it with one of our guides. It's called a water thick knee. That's it, water thick knee. The knees don't look so thick to me, and it was in mud and not water, but it had been water up there. This is a Ceryle, Ceryle kingfisher. This is one of 3 different African kingfishers. Notice the thorns on that tree. This is a giant kingfisher. It's about 2.5 to 3 times the size of our local kingfishers. It's got a much more pronounced beak on it. And this is a pied kingfisher. It also has a much larger beak than our kingfishers do, but it's about the same size as our kingfishers are. And this is a hoopie or hoopoe, Hoopoe. They're very common from Kenya all the way to the Cape. They make a real interesting sound. Unlike Dan, I have no talent of mimicking bird sounds. And they're a pretty little bird. They're a friendly little bird. They'll come and land just feet from you. And they're a ground feeder. And here's another hoopoe. He was in deep shade, so I did my best to bring him out. Now, this is a violent wood hoopoe. You can see, if you can, it has a bug in its beak, and it does have violet color on its back, and a much longer tail wing, tail feathers, awful lot like our scissor-tailed flycatchers are in a way, with just very long tail feathers, very different from the other hoopoes. And there's your violet wood hoopoe, a little bit different view, showing the how long those tail feathers are for such a small little bird. These are Buconus, Buconus, grand hornbills. These are large birds. There's lots and lots of hornbills throughout Africa from the equator down. These are amongst the largest of the hornbills, Buconus hornbills. They're a little bit better picture. Probably a mating ritual going on there. And notice when they fly, you'll see this white under their wings. I didn't see them fly, otherwise you'd have a picture of them in flight. This is a red bill hornbill. Obviously, it's got a very red bill. Late afternoon sun shining through that bill. Red bill hornbill. And this, well, I got it mislabeled. It says another red bill hornbill, but I don't believe it. Yeah, maybe it is though. That's what Merlin said it was. This is a yellow bill hornbill. You can see its bill is more yellow. This one here's bill is more orange. I think it's really an orange bill, because that's definitely a red bill there. But that's a yellow bill hornbill. And here's a better picture of the yellow bill hornbill. We had stopped to take a break under this tree. I showed you this tree as part of the habitat that had all the bare ground around it. And these hornbills were literally walking around our legs. We didn't reach over and touch them, of course, but they had no fear of us whatsoever, mainly because that's where all the guides and the tourists gather to take a break, eat lunch, and drop crumbs. And this is a Bradfield's hornbill. Bradfield's hornbill. It's a little bit smaller hornbill. War-tailed swallows. These are the same size as our swallows. I got a better picture coming up, but if you can see my cursor, you can see the tail. These are the wings. The tail looks like, the tail feather looks like a little wire. It's just a real tiny little feather that sticks out. And here we go. Wire tail, you can see the very tiny, wiry, thin-looking feather on its tail. Wire-tailed swallow. White-faced whistling ducks. A friend of mine was excited when he found out that I got pictures of white-faced whistling ducks. And this is a spur-winged goose. They have a lot more different geese there than we have here. These are Egyptian geese. Egyptian geese are native. We have seen these from Egypt all the way down to the Cape. And these were either in Botswana or Zimbabwe. They're all over the place. They're as common as our Canada geese are here. And they're just as much a nuisance. This is a gray hooded gull, a pretty gull, obvious name for it, gray hooded gull. And this is a white-bellied bustard, a white-bellied bustard. You'll see this mostly in the grasslands. A white-bellied bustard, it's another bustard. This is a cinnamon crested bee eater. And I think I actually got a picture of one with a bee. Yes, they eat bees. Apparently the stingers don't bother them. And this is a white fronted bee eater. And cinnamon crested, white fronted. I would have called that one a white crested or a red throated, but at some point in time, I guess that reddish orange chest will turn white, or there's a little bit of white way down here. Ah, there we go. The white fronted bee eater with a bee. But I see no white on its front, except right here under the eye, under the beak throat area. This is a colored prancole, P-R, I can't read, Pratnicole, P-R-A-T-I-N-C-O-L-E, colored Pratnicole. Yeah. Pardon my lack of proper pronunciation. Basically a ground bird. I never saw one of these flying. They run off when you get close to them, or the truck that you're riding in gets close, it runs, scurries into the bush. And this is a crowned lapwing. There's a lot of different lapwings. And this is a crowned lapwing, but it don't seem to have its crown up. And there's another picture of the crowned lapwing. Maybe it's because of that spot on its head. I am no expert when it comes to naming birds or why they were named that way. That's what we've got Dr. Dan for. This is a ashy flycatcher. It's about the same size of any of our flycatchers here, just a little bird. And this is a blacksmith lapwing. These are prolific. I ended up probably with 100 pictures of these things, thinking it was a different bird because there's another bird that looks an awful lot like them. But the blacksmith lapwings are very prolific around water. There's another blacksmith lapwing standing on one leg. And this is a booble, B-U-B-U-L. It's about a robin-sized bird, and it's got a little bit of yellow back here. It's not under the wing, it's almost a rump feather. This is a Buchel's starling. They have the most beautiful starlings there. There's several varieties of starlings, and they're all just absolutely gorgeous, very shiny, very bright, very noticeable, very squawky birds. If you stop to have a picnic or go to an oasis or a quiet place, like many starlings here, they know you're having a picnic, they come in, they get under your legs, they get on your table. They're scavengers. This is another Buchel's starling. It's also known as the glossy starling. In some country, it would be called by its proper name, Buchel. In another country, it'll be called a glossy. This is a Cape wagtail. I only saw one of these. Saw this one in the same area as the thick-knee. And this is a dusky flycatcher. Another little flycatcher, another little bird. Only one I saw. I didn't know what it was until I went into my app. I found Merlin to be very, very handy, because what I would do when I'd get back at night on my laptop, I'd pull these up, I pull Merlin out on my cell phone, take a picture of it, And if I had a Wi-Fi signal, I had Merlin and it would identify the bird for me. And then I would try and confirm the identification with one of the natives. This is a little bit better picture of the dusky flycatcher. This is a fork-tailed drongo. You can see the fork in its tail. Saw quite a few of these in Zimbabwe and Botswana in the early mornings. As it got up in the day, we didn't notice them so much. It's a fork-tailed drongo, D-R-O-N-G-O. Turned around for me. Thank you. This is the helmeted guinea fowl. Many of our local farmers here in Arkansas have guinea fowl. This is where they come from. This is where they're native to. Up in Botswana, around the lake, there were literally hundreds of them. I understand they're quite tasty, but they're obviously very prolific, which is a little bit surprising to me because they're ground birds, the ground layers, and they seem to propagate quite well. There's a whole flock of them. Notice the blue heads and the crowns on them. Crested, helmeted guinea fowl. I love this picture. These are magpie stripes. Again, similar to our scissor-tail flycatcher, with very long scissor-type tails, about the same size as a scissor-tail flycatcher. And they're noisy birds. They'll talk to you. This is a common mourning dove. And of course, you can't go to Africa without taking a picture of an ostrich. This ostrich was on the Cape. We were on literally the most southern tip of Africa. And this ostrich was just out there by herself, walking around. Didn't see any others. In Kenya, we saw lots and lots of ostriches. The year we was up in Kenya. They seem to like savannas more than they do bush country. And this is a picture from Kenya that I threw in simply because I wanted to show you a male and female ostrich on the savannas. We were at a lion rescue. Yes, we have animal rescues here. They have lion rescues there. We were on the lion rescue premises in the safari vehicle because of the lions. And here was this ostrich. It was very up close and personal, another female. This is down in the Cape. This is an African penguin. They are native to Africa. They do not go to the Antarctic. The only penguin I am lacking now since our trip last month to the Cape Horn area of South America, I am missing the flip. The biggest penguin. I just got a mental block. I'm sorry. It happens to me. The emperor. And I'll probably never get the emperor penguins because the only habitat in Antarctica, in a place that you have to be a scientist on a particular mission and a particular invitation to get to the area where you can see and or photograph the emperor penguin. Just on a regular expedition ship that has permission to land and stop in Antarctic waters, you're not likely to ever see an emperor. But that's the only one I'm lacking. Okay, this is a baby clutch of penguins, of the African penguin. So these were probably born in early July. We were there mid-August. And you can see some of them are a little older than some of the others. They shed, and that's not fur, folks. You know that, of course, being Audubon members. Those are just really, really fine little feathers. And once they shed those, a week or so after, they're ready to hit the water. This is a pied crow from South Africa. We saw riding in the bus from point to point, several of these flying, and when we were down on the Cape, overlooking the Cape, they got a monument there and a place you can climb up the tower. I was able to get a picture of one. It was pretty far off. I had to zoom in, so it's a bit grainy, but I got a picture of a pied crow. This is a red-winged starling, another starling. Got fruit in its mouth, and it looks more orange than red, but you can see the reddish orangish highlights on its wing, the red-winged starling. This is a purple-crested turco, purple-crested turco. This bird was in a tree just right above us. The safari vehicle we were in had stopped to look, I think, at a leopard, and I looked up, and just right over my right shoulder was this bird in this tree looking down at it. So I got a pretty doggone sharp picture of it. Pretty bird. He was as interested in us as I was in him. This is a scarlet-crested sunbird, a tiny little bird, about twice the size, well, maybe 3 times the size of a common hummingbird. When I first saw it, I thought maybe it was a hummingbird. It's a scarlet-crested sunbird. And there it is again, with its beak open a little bit. And this is a southern white-crowned shrike. We have our shrikes here. They have several different varieties there. This is one of them. And this is a southern fiscal. This was actually my only rare bird for the season, for the time we were there. Merlin listed it as a rare. This is a speckled mouse bird. This is another Kenya bird. They are in South Africa, but I wanted to share some of the more unusual ones. This is a splendid starling, and I think so. This is a superb starling. So I think you've seen about 6 different starlings that are all very pretty. Our starlings aren't bad looking. They're glossy and have good markings on them, but they just don't hold a candle to the variety of African starlings, in my opinion. This is a little bit better picture of the superb starling. This is a tawny flanked Crimea. Now this is a rare, a tawny flanked Crimea. This, I was mistaken. This is the rare bird I got. It looks sort of similar to the other one. I had to send the pictures in to prove that I actually took a picture of it, and it was actually where it was, where I said it was. This would have been in Zimbabwe. And here's another picture of the same bird. And it's interesting to me, it's the very same bird, but you look at this picture, it looks like it has a dark back on it, a little bit different coloration. You look at this picture and you don't see the dark back on it. Maybe this one is leaf shadow, but it just looks very natural. But maybe it's where the light hits it. Same bird, a tawny flanked tremia. Village weaver, these are weaver birds. They weave a bag-like hanging nest, and you see them around people. If you stop where there's little roadside stands, roadside cafes, other businesses with trees, they're all over the place. Now, we did see a lot of them up at Victoria Falls area on the road to the falls in the trees. There were bags and bags and bags, but no weaver birds, no village weaver birds. They're very pretty, bright bird, and they're pretty friendly. They're used to people, I think. And this is the same bird that turned around and looked at me. And again, it looked like an entirely different bird looking at your face on. Side view, frontal view, same bird. This is a Bagelfecht weaver bird. Baglefecht. You can tell a little difference, but it's a weaver bird. And this is the speckled weaver bird. So that's 3 weaver birds that I saw in the same place. A white-breasted sunbird. If you remember the other sunbird, the red-crested breasted sunbird had a long hook beak like this, and I think this one has its tongue stuck out at us. I think they might be nectar birds. That's a bill. I didn't see one in a flower, but it's the kind of bill you would expect to be getting nectar from a flower. And this is a white-browed robin. This is the African robin chat, the white-browed robin chat. The wattled lapwing. Like I said earlier, there are a number of lapwings throughout Africa. This is the wattled variety. They're sort of cute. Again, we see them on the ground around water. And this is another wattled lapwing. Well, that's pretty much it, folks. These are a lion pair that we saw, mated pair in the bush. They were no more than 20 feet from our truck. They just sit there and looked at us real pretty, posed real pretty. After everybody took 100 or so pictures, the male got up and walked one way, and the female got up and went into a tree. This is a leopard. So if you go to Africa, you'll see more leopards in Zimbabwe and Botswana and the Kruger National in South Africa than you will in Kenya. You'll see more cheetahs in Kenya. And of course, lots and lots of elephants, rhinos, Cape buffaloes, and lions. That's the big 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When people talk about the big 5, that's the big 5 for the old big game hunters. And let me disabuse you about big game hunters. It's just like you driving down a country lane here in Arkansas and seeing a field of cows and getting out and shooting one. Seriously, that's how easy it is and always has been. The big 5. Oh, yeah. Any questions?
Are you going to show your video, Joe?
There's the video right there. Did you see it?
Yep.
I'm not sure the sound.
That's okay, Joe. I think you didn't click the button to share your
Oh,
sound,
okay.
so it's fine. So why don't you unshare your screen? We can go to questions. So again, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat and I will relay them to Joe, or you can unmute yourself. And I will start off. So how many bird species did you see on this trip, Joe, and how many were lifers?
Well, right now I'm trying to get everybody back on your screen. Okay, stop share. Okay, I got to hit stop share. Okay, I'm learning. I got, I think, 101 new birds and probably saw no more than 20 more that were not new. So somewhere around 120 different species. Now, I'm sure that Dan, if you or one of our real birders, I'm not a real birder, folks. I love birds. I can't hear most of them. I've got a set of hearing aids that don't help me understand speech any better than I do without them. But when I'm out in the woods and it's quiet, I'll put them in so I can hear the little birds. I can hear the big birds, but not the little ones. So I miss a whole lot. So I like to go with somebody who's got good hearing because they can hear something and then we can then find out where it's at and we can take a picture of it. So I'm more of a ethical bird photographer than I am a birder simply because I miss so many. I really do. If they move and I see them, I can generally get a picture of them. But I enjoy sharing pictures with people.
Well, what was your favorite bird of the trip?
What was that?
What was your favorite bird of that trip?
Oh, golly.
Or Candace wants to know your top 3 favorites from that.
I mean, you know, there were so many. There was nothing, well, like the one that was in the road, the bushel or whatever, that raptor, just all of a sudden appeared in the road, totally unexpected. And there was one that I somehow didn't get in the series that we saw very early in the morning. It was another raptor with bright red eyes.
So
I don't know how that got left out of this because that was exciting to see because it was still pretty low light. And the guides that drive you around, they're very, very sharp because they want their tips. And they deserve their tips. I'm not saying that in a derogatory, negative manner. And they'll point out things. And I spotted it about the same time he did. And he stopped and slowed down, and I got pretty good pictures of it. And it just had this very bright red eye with radiated, and it was just awesome. And then that one that was in the road. And my memory is such now that I have to look at the names of them. Now, I was really, really excited last month when I saw the Andean condor sitting on top of a rock of 2,000 imperial and cormorants, and it was just sitting there, very magnificent. And we were in a boat, and the people driving the boat didn't seem too excited, but I was like a kid getting his first horse at Christmas. And I ran into the cabin and said, "Make an announcement. There's a Andean condor on the top of that rock." And this gal, she looks out the window and says, "Yeah, you're right." And she makes an announcement, and there wasn't more than 3 people that turned around and took a picture of it. I mean, you know, they were snapping pictures of just common thousands of cormorants. And here's this one in a lifetime picture of an Andean condor. Yeah, I got real excited about that.
Well, you'll never forget that one, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Brian wants to know, did you go with an established bird tour company or did you arrange with local guides yourself?
Well, actually, we went, and I meant, because of this deal with my brother and his wife in the Philippines, things have gotten sort of topsy-turvy. I meant to have made a slide. There are 2 tour companies. Gate 1, GATE numeric 1 travel.com is the one we've been with. We've done several trips with them. They're very good. they're not a nature travel company per se, but they hire some of the best guides. And when you tell the guide what you're interested in, because most everybody, they just want to see something. You know, I'm the only guy with a long lens wagging a 60 to 600 millimeter lens around. You know, everybody's taking the cell phone pictures. And that last picture I showed you of the leopard with the impala in the tree, that was taken through a bus window with a iPhone Pro 13 by a fellow by the name of German Chalk. He's Russian, lives in Boston. We've become friends. I could not believe it. I mean, seriously, that is a better picture than I got with my 600 millimeter lens from the same spot, same distance, terrible backlight. And what he does, he uses it in movie mode. And he simply takes however many seconds of pictures, or sometimes a minute or more, and then he just zips through them, and he can pick them out frame by frame and find the best frame. And it's clear as it can be. It's as sharp as it can be. It made me a believer. And I've got at least one really high-end photographer friend down in Miami, Florida. We go on some trips together sometimes when he takes pity on me, invites me to come along. He travels with some of the best, very best nature photographers in the world. I mean, seriously, he spends 10 days a month somewhere on the planet, 8 months out of the year, just to take now sunrise and sunset pictures. He used to take nothing but nature photography pictures, and he got bored with that. Now he just takes sunrises and sunsets 95% of the time. He travels with the best photographers, the best geographic photographers, the best known photographers in the world. And I called him up. His name's Joe Filer. I says, Joe, I sent him the picture. I said, how in the heck can this happen when our $4,000 cameras can't do this? He didn't have a good answer.
I got another question for you, Joe. Candace wants to know, what was the weather like when you were there? And also, how readily was clean water available for the people who live in that area?
Well, compared to any third world country, particularly countries like Africa, most of South America, a lot of Central America, Indonesia, there's no poverty here in this country at all. None, zero. I mean, zero. You get in the coastal cities and you see wealth. Everything's good. Water's good. Safety's good. The African people are wonderful. You get 20 to 30 miles away from the coastlines, people are living in tin shacks, and shack after shack after shack communities. Now, the interesting thing is the governments, they're a lot better off than they used to be. Most of them have electricity, so they have a hot plate. The weather is great. The temperature, we were there in the summer, August, their summer, end of their summer. 40 degrees at night to 70, 75 in the daytime and bone dry. The wet season below the equator in most areas is October and November. Rains all the time, just about, and then it stops. And then everything dries up. You can see in my background here, that's a wall hanger on my wall. You can see how dry it is.
Yeah.
It's just bone dry.
Yeah. Well, one last question I'll ask is, so you've been to 72 countries now. What was your favorite country to visit? And why?
America.
Well, to visit, you live here.
Well, our two favorites, Antarctica the continent. We've been on all 7 continents. Antarctica is just absolutely awesome. If you can save up enough money, because it's not cheap, you have to take an expedition ship, a cruise ship. No ship that holds more than 500 people can stop in Antarctic waters. You know, all your big cruise lines have Antarctic cruises. They do not stop. They go real slow through Antarctic water, but they cannot stop. You don't get on land. If you're going to get on the islands and on the continent, you have to do it by Zodiac off of the mothership, and the mothership cannot have more than 500 people. Okay, Africa, we love Africa. Africa is just absolutely awesome. The other tour company that we recommend is Friendly Planet. Just like it sounds, FRIENDLYPLANET.com. They're a tad more expensive, not horribly so, but they're all small groups. Rarely more than 15. They try to keep the groups below 20, usually around 15. We did the Galapagos with them one year, and it was only 9 of us. That was Linda and I and 7 other people. And 2 of the other couples were physicians. So when I got sick, I had plenty of help. But when you go to these countries, the tour companies, you're only going to eat in places where the food and the water is safe. And they're going to train you and teach you and tell you what not to do. The people in South Africa, the people all over Africa, and we absolutely enjoyed our time in South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Eswatini, and the 2 others that we just crossed our feet into. They're wonderful countries, but there's just something really special about Kenya, and you actually see a lot more animals, except for the leopards, in Kenya because it's all savannas, but the people are so gracious. In Cape Town, I have to share this story with you. In Cape Town, we were there 3 days on this trip. Cape Town's a very modern city. It's got a lot of wealth in Cape Town. We went to their major mall right on the coastline, had pizza for lunch. We had a big 20-inch pizza with 3 toppings. I had beer, Linda had Coke. The total bill came to $20. Let that sink in. I gave the little waitress, black girl waitress, a $5 tip, and she wanted to hug me. She almost cried. She could not believe that somebody would give her that big of a tip. And from that point forward, that was the beginning of our trip. Anytime we ate out, most of our food is provided, included in the price of admission for the tour company. But we do get to eat out, usually lunches. We tipped more than about what we do here and a little bit more. And everybody they were just dumbfounded. They were they weren't sarcastic folks. They were truly, truly appreciative.
Very nice, Joe. Thank you. We appreciate you and you sharing your photos and your stories with us. We're out of time though, so thank you very much for tuning in.